Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 6, Ancient Rome, Section 3, Roman Society and Culture. So, let's begin. In number 1, wealth in Rome was distributed unevenly, unfortunately, and poor people lived, for the most part, in crowded and dangerous conditions. The wealthy uh, of Rome, for the most part, spent most of their time embroiled in politics. The government provided free bread and also entertainment to keep the poor from rebelling against their living conditions. One of the things that I would like to mention is that as we have reforms that are going to happen during the time of the Pax Romana. Some of our wealthier patricians are going to find that their lives are going to be a little bit more chaotic, and hence that's going to cause some unrest on that side. But when we talk about our poor people, because of some of the reforms that had happened over the years, a lot of our agricultural people were forced off of their farms and into the cities. And to keep them from rebelling, they had to find amusements. So, part of the public works building projects were things like the Colosseum that you see below and Circus Maximus, which was kind of like a racetrack, chariot track, if you want to call it that. Both of these facilities were able to handle tens of thousands of people. But at the same time, these amusements, even though they were free of charge and they got food when they went to their entertainment, they were very savage and brutal. And so, needless to say, it kind of has this weird undertone of, yes, we're kind of like high society, but yet at the same time, it's kind of gruesome. Family life emphasized virtues of simplicity, religious devotion, obedience. Adoption was also very important in Rome because it ensured that the family name was carried on in families that had no sons. If you look at Julius Caesar, he actually adopted his nephew Octavian. So that's kind of a well-known example of that. But for the most part, this whole idea of raising, orphan children was not necessarily out of the ordinary in Rome, and it was something that people saw as being very important. And number 3, the building of public structures was possible in Rome due to the invention of concrete. And as a result, we're going to build lots of public works items. Roman roads, as you see kind of in the middle of the picture here, were known for their sturdiness. It was also a way to keep our soldiers kind of occupied when they weren't fighting. They could work on these projects. Along with that, we're going to start building other things using concrete, and for the most part, we're gonna see a huge building boom, and that's probably one of the and longer legacies of the Roman Empire because some of that is still with us yet to this day. The difference between Greek and Roman approaches to knowledge or education is that the Greeks preferred knowledge for its own sake, whereas Romans were very practical. They were pragmatic, as we would call them, and they tried to apply their knowledge. So if you're going to spend a lot of time learning something, it should be applied to something that has got a purpose. So when we talk about educating, it seemed like, every town, city throughout the Roman Empire had different layers of education. There was kind of what we would consider the primary education, like elementary school, starting at roughly the age of 7. And then you would have kind of the equivalents of secondary or junior high school, starting at the age of 13. Higher education might start around the age 16 and so on. We also had the knowledge of language. Granted, a lot of people understood Greek because of the fact that it was kind of a scholarly language at that point in time, but the use of Latin becomes very important. And the Latin alphabet had 23 letters. 3 were added such as J, U, and W that we still have today. And really, even today, about a third of all English words have their roots in Latin. So, uh, definitely a long lasting legacy there as far as education is concerned. Cities benefited from the development of aqueducts because it brought clean water supply. Clean supply of water, it improved hygiene. When we talk about uh, the Roman population, they used toilets, as you can see in the middle. That is a toilet, kind of looks like an outhouse in a sense. But Roman baths, they had fountains. So yeah, the Romans were very interested in staying clean and keeping their society very clean. The development of arches and vaults also allowed uh, builders to construct much larger buildings. And some of these are things that you see today. Even if you go over to the church and you take a look at the ceiling, there's remnants of arches and vaults, even in our parish. And then finally, today, the Roman influence is still with us through the use of the Latin language, as I mentioned previously, which is the basis of the modern languages of French, Italian, Spanish, and even English. Our legal system in the United States is based on Roman law, Roman civil law. Thank you very much.